Hello guys, Sean here, and I don't know what this is over. Like, I don't know what you're seeing on the screen because I really wanted to record this right now because I'm once again, like, all amped up about this topic. And I didn't really want to set up the camera and, quite frankly, didn't want to shave and look, like, even half decent for the camera. So, I'll probably throw some early access gameplay up here, since that's kind of what we're talking about. Of what game, I'm not sure. Maybe Reign of Kings, maybe something else. We'll see what I can find that's amusing, at least. I kind of want to talk about early access because I really like early access, and I feel like a lot of what people say about it is misleading. And sure, there are risks when you buy an early access game. I bought the Stomping Land, where the devs apparently have run away, and they ran away pretty quickly. Nothing really ever came of that game, which was sad. I was disappointed, but it was $20, and I'll live. And I know that, sometimes $20 is a lot of money in your case, but maybe you shouldn't buy early access games. But I'm going to make my argument for them, starting now. So, H1Z1, which is what's bringing this topic back to my head, but it could be said of any early access game. H1Z1 is charging $20 for early access on Steam, and the game is going to be free when it comes out. So, it's a little weird for me. Like, that part's a little iffy, but the logic that I'm going to follow for why you should support early access, or why you should at least calm down. Like, I don't necessarily think you personally need to buy an early access game, but there are legitimate reasons that early access exists. And yes, some people are going to abuse it and take money and run. Some people are not going to intend to abuse it, but things happen, okay? Early access is not a place for games from EA or, giant studios like that normally. I'm not against seeing it become that kind of place because early access games, first of all, are usually priced lower than the, full release. And also, if you could help, shape an EA game, an Activision game, by actually giving feedback through, a beta, that would be amazing. A lot of things that happen in those games would be avoided, and it would be a more open development process, and the fans would have more input on what happens. But nonetheless, that's not what we're talking about. So, a lot of people say, early access is a scam. Back in my day, back in my day, these people are probably, 14 years old. But back in my day, it was called a demo, or, alphas were free, or, all this stupid shit. And, well, in some cases, it may sound silly for, if EA was doing it for, the next Battlefield, to be we need money now. The reason early access exists for a lot of studios and for a lot of development teams that are making games, and putting them up on Steam on early access is to fund the development of the game. There wouldn't be a game if it wasn't for them bringing in money through early access, because they're not a big enough game that people are going to pre-order it, months in advance when they have no idea what the game is. But they might if they could play it right now, which is basically what you're doing when you buy an early access game. You're pre-ordering it for the right to play a potentially broken game right now. And, I saw a lot of talk about how, H1Z1, it's buggy and it's a mess. Don't put your game in early access if it's broken. DayZ, for example, went up on early access over a year ago, and it's not done yet. And I think it's scheduled to be done by the end of the year, although that date's always changing, so who knows what the hell's going on with DayZ. But, that game's been in development for a long time, but the thing people seem to forget sometimes is, it depends game to game how early access it really is, but for a lot of games, they have base systems in place. DayZ, they had a couple things you could pick up, a couple guns, and zombies that barely functioned, with a map. That's what they had. And so it was really early, and games don't get made overnight. This isn't something that happens, in a week just because you bought it on early access. You're part of the development process now. You are essentially a developer who just doesn't write code or do anything for the game. You're seeing builds day to day, usually week to week. It gets updated on early access, but you're seeing them build the game and break the game and then build it back up and then break it again. You're seeing this process. And so, it's not a scam because it's broken, and it's not a scam because they're asking for money for what you consider like a demo because they need the money to fund the development. Like, the game wouldn't exist if they weren't on early access and getting the funding. And let's pretend that somehow, some way, they could sell their house or something and secure the funding for the game. It's hard to, when these studios are normally smaller, when you're an indie studio, to know if there's any interest in your title. A good way to find out is to be selling it actively throughout development. And, if you're selling the game and you're bringing in money, okay, so we brought in this much this month and last month, so we can expect that next month we'll bring in probably the same amount or somewhere around there. If, the first month you made a lot and then it goes downhill every month after that, you're going to know that, like, unfortunately, we may need to wrap up development on this game a bit earlier and move on to a new project because this one, by next month, we're not going to bring in enough money to, pay our bills and to not only pay the staff, but make the staff be able to pay their bills at their house and, pay for their car and whatever else they need. So, like, I think people need to realize that it is basically funding the game. You're not necessarily buying a game right now. You're not, paying for the right to be an alpha tester. You're, in a way, helping to fund the game's existence. And without you, the game wouldn't exist. And I do understand, in a lot of ways, why people get mad about pre-ordering from, like, AAA titles because they feel like they get ripped off or... it gives publishers incentives to hide parts of the game behind pre-order bonuses. And I get all that, and that makes sense, I don't mind pre-order bonuses. Obviously, there would be some that I do mind, like, if you took out, like, the end of a game because it's in the pre-order bonus or just something that seems significant. But, like, when they give, like, a hat or a skin or a, whatever, like, who cares? Like, I don't really worry about it. But... with early access, generally, you're pre-ordering, but you get to play today. And what you get to play may not be what you want to play. It may not be that good. Like, with DayZ, I played, for the first month and a half, I played off and on. And I haven't really touched it since. And I'm kind of waiting till the day it's done. And I'll put that in quotes, because who knows when it will be done. But, like, I'm waiting till it's more... fleshed out. Like, I wanted to pay, I wanted to support the development of the game, I wanted the game to get made. I want to have the ability to check in and see what's going on, but I'm not gonna sit there for hours with bugged zombies and things that aren't working. I'm just not. But, the plan is that will one day get fixed. If it doesn't, that sucks, and it sucks that you gave the money, but it's not much different than when you pre-order the next Battlefield and it comes out and you try to play it and this is broken and that's broken. It's not much different. And the way it is different is that usually it's cheaper. You get immediate access to the game way before it's supposed to be functioning. And you also get to support the development of the game and make sure it gets made. Because indie studios, they can't run big ad campaigns and ask you to pre-order their title based on nothing. They need, a couple hundred people to just go in the store on Steam and say, hey, that looks interesting. I'm going to give them a chance. Here's $20, here's $30. And then play the game and tell their friends, hey, you should get this early access game. Like, it's really buggy right now, but it's going to be awesome. People just need to go buy it and give them a chance and get behind this idea. And if you can't wrap your head around why an indie studio or a smaller studio or just, maybe, like, some studios are owned by publishers. Some studios, like, how Bungie worked for Microsoft, now they work for Activision. Like, some studios bounce around. Maybe one of those studios doesn't, like, maybe Bungie, next time when their deal with Activision is up, doesn't want to have to rely on Activision or EA for funding, because that's why publishers exist. They drop the big buckets of cash so that the developer can actually make the game. So maybe Bungie wants to go out on their own, but maybe they don't want to, risk that they're going to spend 5 years developing this game and then no one's going to be interested. So they want to show it early, but when you show something early, people get excited. They want to play. They want to help. But they don't necessarily want to pre-order 5 years in advance. Like, for a Grand Theft Auto that's like, Grand Theft Auto 6 in development now will be seen in 4 or 5 years. Like, if they announce it today, people are going to want to play today, even if it doesn't work. Like, smaller studios don't have that power, but the bigger studios that try to break away from publishers, they need a way to fund the development of their game. And it's hard to convince someone to pre-order something that's years and years down the line. But if you tell them, hey, you give us some money now, you can play right away, and you get full access to the actual game when it's done, people are going to do that, and it's going to be able to support development of games. We can't keep on the path that we're on, where, you know, we need 2K, Activision, EA to swoop in with hundreds of millions of dollars to make a game. Because when one of those games goes south, those publishers are going to be fucked. Like, it's going to fuck everything up. Everyone at that studio will be fired from the development studio, and the publisher is going to be scared to put in that much money. Games aren't cheap, and if we can get games made a different way without having to rely on publishers to make, you know, shady business dealings with developers, then we need to do that. And don't look at it as a scam. Sure, somebody like the Stomping Land may, you know, make a game and then run away in the middle of its development process. And I don't even know that they did that maliciously. I think that it's possible that it got bigger than they thought it was going to be. And then when things weren't working out, they were nervous that they couldn't deliver, and maybe just kind of felt like there's nothing I can say to fix the situation, so I'm just going to try to go away quietly. Like, I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that, like, they didn't, you know, come into it saying, hey, we're going to fuck everyone over and take the money. Sure, somebody might do that, or somebody could have done that. Maybe they did, but I kind of believe that sometimes things don't go as planned, and games are really expensive to make, and things happen that you don't anticipate happening through the process of making it. And, you know, as much as I said early access is to help fund the game, sometimes the game gets bigger than the funding. And, you know, when you feel like you got tons of funding, you're like, oh, we want to do this, this, and this, and then you start in on 10 different systems for your game, and then you realize, wait a minute, we can barely afford to finish the first one. Fuck. Okay, now we need tons of money. Who's got the money? And then no one has the money, and you can't do it. Or you find out people aren't interested in your game. Or they are at the start, and they're not, 6 months into it. And originally you had plans for this, this, and this. You expanded them to include all this, and then the funding just stopped coming in because people stopped getting interested, and you have to scale it back. Like, shit happens in early access that you can't anticipate. But normally it's a cheaper game, and it helps get that game made that wouldn't otherwise be done. And we need to be able to have developers who are independent, who don't work for publishers, who aren't hanging over them at all the times, and the only people hanging over them are the people who bought the game. And that makes for better games, and most likely a more stable industry that's not reliant on publishers to throw out hundreds of millions based on a sales pitch. So I'm going to wrap up because I'm just walking in circles. Maybe we'll talk about this again, depending on if people respond and if other things come up. But as far as specifically with H1Z1 is concerned, I think it's a little weird to charge for early access to a free-to-play, although I assume that the same thing stands where they don't probably want to ramp up the server requirements for once it goes live, as a public game, but they still need funding to make the game and, people to play it and, tell them what to do. So they went with this option, which is a fine option, I guess, in that case. You don't want to have to pay to have hundreds of thousands of servers for a game that doesn't work, but you still need to be able to bring in some money, so you did it this way. The weird trying to charge $7 a month for a game mode during your early access is kind of weird, especially where people already paid you to get into it. I don't think you should do that. It seems like they have backtracked on that, and they won't be doing that now, at least until the free-to-play actually launches, which I think is a better idea, because, like I said, assuming that this is for funding in their case, they used to be Sony Online, worked for Sony, so now they don't, so maybe they do need the funding now, but it's a little weird in that case, because I don't think Sony needed the funding, but maybe they, weren't willing to fund this, but they said, hey, if you can go out and get the funding, you go do it. But I think it still stands true that if they need the funding, we should be trying to give them the funding. However, whatever form that may come, if you support the game and you want to play the game, give them the money. I've said that, one more point about, League of Legends or other free-to-play games, but, there are people who play League who never buy anything, and there are people who brag that they never buy anything. I've been playing for 5 years, I've never bought anything. That's not good, okay? like, I know it's free to play, and I think League does it, I wouldn't say the best of anybody, because I think, maybe making all the champs free and things like that would be a little bit of a better model, and just charging for skins, but, like, I've spent hundreds on that game just because I'm impatient, and when it came to unlocking champs, I felt like, because I started like 3.5 years into League's life, that I was way behind, and to catch up, I was just like, I'll spend some money to unlock champs, when they're on sale and stuff. But as someone who spent hundreds of dollars, like, you need to give people money for what they make, especially in the case of like League or something like Dota, where they really don't ask you for any money. Like, they don't hide game modes behind paywalls. They don't do any of that shit. Like, it really is pretty much completely free to play. So you can't expect to have really good games and then not give them any money to make them. And sure, League makes plenty of money and like Riot's not in trouble, but somebody has to pay them. And free to play, the idea is basically you get to try the game before you commit any money to us. So if you hate us, you get to leave. You don't hate us, you give us some money and, support us and, help us continue doing what we're doing. If you don't do that, then, like, honestly, I really don't think you should be allowed to play the game. Like, I wish that free-to-play games gave you, like, a month to play the game, and then, like, a timer went off and said, hey, you gotta give us something here, even if it's $5 for a fucking hat or some shit. You gotta give us something, because, the idea is to get people in the door, not to fucking, just do all their work for free and go broke themselves. Like, that's not the idea. And I understand some people just don't have money, can't spend money, whatever. But there is a large portion of people who play free-to-play games and don't spend money, and then they spend it on a fucking iPhone app to, get to the next level because they're upset. Like, just get me all like, I'm not a big fan of skins necessarily, but I buy skins. You know why I buy skins? Because every once in a while, somebody deserves to be paid. And if you have me playing your game for hours upon hours every month, like every week, 5 a day, you get to be paid. Like, that's how that works. Not everything gets to be free. And I went way over, so fuck it, I'm just going to say one more thing anyway. Like, The Elder Scrolls Online is going free now, or subscription free. But if I were them, like, what I would do is make the game free, because right now it's $60 you have to buy the game, and then you don't pay a subscription from there on out. Before it was $60 and I think $15 a month. What I would do is make the game itself free, but have it be $15 a month, because with that, you stand to make more money in the long term. And my issue with buying games, I buy plenty, believe me. Like, I buy most games, honestly, that are like big titles, and I buy a lot of early access, because I do believe in this thing, and I do believe this is good for everyone. And just like indie stuff that I don't even play, but I want them to make something else. I want them to get the chance to do the next thing, whatever it is. Maybe I will like that one more. But, like, it's not that I don't like paying you $15 a month. Like, by the time I'm done with League every month, I've paid $15 a month. Like, I'm paying my subscription fee, believe me. Partly to make up for those who don't. But, like, I would prefer to be able to pay $15 for this month, play the game for a month, and then see if I want to pay $15 next month, instead of having to drop $60 on the game and find out 2 hours into it I don't like it, and now I'm stuck with a $60 disc that, yeah, I can play anytime I want, but I don't want to. Like, I'd prefer if they did the thing the other way, where you pay per month not to get in, instead of pay to get in not per month. Like, I think that we have a lot of room to work on that kind of thing, and I feel like subscriptions are kind of going away as more MMOs like turn to free to play, and like a lot of them turning to microtransactions, some of them turning to this kind of like buy the game, just play forever model. I prefer we went for like, it's free for the game. The game is, you just download it, but you gotta pay us. And, do something where, I don't know, somehow set it up so that someone can get some time in the game without, actually paying money. I guess you could do that based on accounts, like you get a new account, play for 15 days or something. Because in MMOs, especially, like, this is more directed towards MMOs, like, people aren't going to want to buy a game or want to start over on a new account to get more game time. Like, they're not going to want to lose their character and, like, their progress, so that could work. Another thing you could do is you could sell the game for $15, essentially. So, you know, it's basically the first month subscription and you buy it and it comes with the first month. But, like, drop the price. Don't fucking, none of the $60 shit. Like, that's where you scare people off. Like, especially for me, like, I don't really play MMOs. I spent probably 3 weeks playing World of Warcraft. I wouldn't say, like, I'm not, like, you know, people have those stories where they played for 9 weeks straight and they never saw the sun. Like, no, I played a little bit. A couple months ago, like, back probably December, November, whatever, I played for a bit. And I didn't resubscribe or anything, but the reason I bought in was because it was, like, a sale, and, like, the starter, like, the, you know, the base game was $5 with a month subscription. Like, it came with the month. Like, I was like, oh, I'm in, totally. I was always close to being in for 20, but I never did it. But if you know, it's the barrier, like, the big, giant $60 thing where I'm like, so if I give you $60 and I never play it, like Dying Light, I think I played for 20 minutes. Like, I got dizzy and I was done. If playing Dying, like, you can't do it more with, like, single-player games like that necessarily, but if playing Dying Light was free, as long as I paid $15 a month, I'd pay the $15 and go, hey, this makes me dizzy, I'm done. And so, like, with H1Z1 and BR and, like, that game mode, you know, when it goes free to play, I'll pay $7 for this month, play it this month, and next month maybe I won't subscribe for the $7 because I won't be, you know, playing the game that much, but then the month after I'll give you back the $7. Like, it's just such an easier, like, here's $7, as opposed to, here's $60, pray to God that I want to play this for the next 4 months. Like, I don't know. This started as defensive early access, then became a business model disaster conversation. I've talked too long, as I always do. Maybe I should make this a podcast. I'd have a much easier time in life. But thank you for listening, if you've been listening. Lord knows I did not cover the screen with 20-something minutes of gameplay, so whatever you did get to see, I hope that was fun. Again, we'll probably talk about this again, because I have a lot of thoughts on this, and every time someone leaves a certain comment, like, I have a new thought about it, and a new thing I want to point out, and a new thing I want to say, and there's no point in arguing in comment sections, but I thought I'd voice my opinion here, because I really do like early access, and I want to buy more games. And I do think Steam needs to be careful and protect customers against people who do take the money and run. Because, not only because it's not good that they took the money and ran, but because I think that Steam, as the, you know, place where early access really exists right now, they need to make sure that the customers can buy into early access games with the confidence that at least something will happen. Because, you know, if one goes bad, then in that guy's head, early access is a scam, they're all going to go bad, and then we have less people to fund the games that might turn out to be Minecraft. Just saying. Like, there's this little thing called Minecraft, which pretty much started this whole fucking craziness. And, you know, you never know when that next game is there, and I don't think Minecraft is, like, the craziest game of all time. Like, I don't, you know, like, I don't think the world would have ended without Minecraft, but that thing is huge, and it can be fun in pieces. So, we don't want to miss out on that because Steam is really strict about a return policy or a, you know, customer protection thing where people can just take the money and run. And I think that really starts with vetting the studios that are putting their games up, you know, to make sure, like, hey, so how much money do you have right now? Like, if you got nobody to buy the game in 3 months, what would happen? You know, like, kind of figuring out, like, where the studio stands. You know, if the studio comes in, they say, like, hey, we need to sell 2 million copies in the first week, or we're going out of business. Like, obviously, you can't put them in the store. If they say, hey, we got enough money for next month, but the month after, we need all the money from Steam, I'd be a little cautious. Like, I'd ask them where you are in development. Like, Are you putting up something that's really buggy that's unlikely to get sold right away? Because if that's the case, then we can't put you up because in a month you're going to have a real problem. So I think it's on Steam to kind of be careful because they hold the reputation of early access in their hands. And if, one guy in a comment section says it's a scam because he got this one game and no one ever did anything with it, and then like another guy hears that, and, there goes our funding, and there goes what I think could be a really, really good way to get away from the attachment to publishers, especially as 3D engines are more widely available. Most indie games are going to try, probably, to utilize things like Unreal and make what I'm going to call an actual game, although that's unfair. But, right now, a lot of them feel like they have to do 2D or, platformers, because it's just not, they're not capable to, support the funding on making a big 3D thing, because more things can go wrong, and there's more art that needs to be done, and it's more complicated. So people are going to need funding, and this is the perfect way to do it, because you give incentive to buy the game, because you get to play it right now, not just pre-order it and get nothing for 2 years or whenever the game gets done. You get to play right now, and you get to help make sure this game actually gets done. And I think that's really important. And so I'm going to wrap up there, but please, 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 obviously look into who the studio is, even though you might not be able to find anything because they are, a lot of them, newer studios. Obviously, look into it and see what people are saying about the game, but if some of us don't take chances on early access, we're fucked, and please don't judge every early access game under the "it's a scam, why would I pay for a broken game, why would I pay to be a beta tester." Like, they're trying to fund the game. Like, if you can't get that through your head, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you're probably one of those people who doesn't understand why I said you should pay money to Riot for League, or pay money to Valve for Dota, or, pay for any game at all, or pay for anything at all. Why do we pay? Because, unfortunately, people need money, and I wish we could do it some other way, but that's not how it works. So people need to get paid, and if they don't get paid, they can't keep making the game. So you're not entitled to everything for free. I think H1Z1 might realize it's a bad business model to have $7 a month charges in your game, but I don't think it comes from a place of like, we're evil. It comes from, we need to make money somehow, and this is a good way to do it. Even though I feel like they put the money on the not supposed to be main game, because the main game isn't really drawing in people. It's the other game mode that's drawing people in, and I think that's a little weird. Like, they say that's how it was planned all along, and I kind of believe them, but at the same time, I think it's odd that the thing your game's not supposed to be about has become your entire business model at this point, it seems. But anyway, I'm done, really, this time. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you later and in the comments below.